In this video, we'll be working with the webhook function in Integromat. You'll learn how to use webhooks to provide other apps information in real time. We'll be using Simple Scraper, Integromat, and Google Sheets in this tutorial. We'll be using the free plan for each tool to complete this project. Simple Scraper is a great tool for extracting data from sites without any code. Please note, you will need to be using Chrome as this is a Chrome extension. Integromat is a useful tool to automate processes, and it's within Integromat that we will be setting up our webhook function to process external data. Google Sheets is where our exported data will get processed to. For convenience, I've timestamped the video in the description. Before we save our web scraper and set up our webhook, I want to scrape some data from a website to ensure that we return the correct data when we run our webhook. To begin, go to blockchain.com/charts. We're going to scrape the market price and the transactions per day for Bitcoin. I'm scraping this for project purposes only. Perhaps you are interested in trying to understand if there is a correlation between price and transactions. That isn't the key purpose of this tutorial. The purpose is showing you how to use the webhook function in Integromat, and this is the data we'll be using. Let's open Simple Scraper. And with Simple Scraper open, we can select the first data point we want to scrape by clicking the plus sign. Then selecting the data point we want to scrape. First, we want to scrape the market price of Bitcoin. So the element that's highlighted in green, and I only want the price element, is what will get scraped. And let's name this data point price and click the tick to set it for when we run the scraper. Second, we want transactions, so I'll click the plus sign again. And this time I'll highlight the transactions per day, and again I only want this piece of data. And I'll name this piece of data transactions. And I'll click the tick to set it for when we run the scraper. With the data selected, we can run the scraper and it will work its magic. To run the web scraper, simply click View Results. And Simple Scraper will work its magic and return our desired data. We can now save this web scraper so we can integrate it with our webhook. Let's save the settings for our scraper before configuring our webhook. In Simple Scraper, scraper settings are referred to as recipes. Click Save Recipe. From here, you'll get asked to complete the initial settings. Let's do it. Recipe name, I'll simply name this Bitcoin Webhook. URL, it's important the URL stays exactly like this. Selected properties, price and transactions. Our selected data. Page navigation, we can leave that as it is. Now click Create Recipe. Along the left hand side, under My Recipes, you'll see that our recipe got created, Bitcoin Webhook. So if we click onto that, and now click on the Integrate tab in Simple Scraper, you will see Webhook URL. It's here where we need to insert the URL for our webhook in Integromat. Let's switch over to Integromat. What you'll want to do is head over to the Scenarios page and click Create a New Scenario. The first function that we want to insert is webhooks. Once you've found it, we want to set it to Custom Webhook, and that will trigger whenever the webhook receives data from a source, in our case, our web scraper. We must now click Add to create our webhook, and for the purposes of this project, let's name our webhook Bitcoin Webhook. Of course, it's best to name any functions like this clearly for future reference. Let's now click Save. You'll notice a link which Integromat will generate. Integromat is waiting for us to send data to this link. Hence, we must paste this link into Simple Scraper. So let's copy the address to clipboard, go back to Simple Scraper, and paste the address into webhook URL and press enter to save that URL in Simple Scraper. Now, before we go back to Integromat, I want to click Run Recipe in Simple Scraper. Now let's go back to Integromat. And within moments, your webhook will determine the data once the recipe has run in Simple Scraper. So that means the webhook will have successfully received the data. And as we can see, this data has been successfully determined. So that means the webhook has recognized the data. We can now continue and map our data to a Google Sheet via Integromat. Let's add another module to our automation in Integromat. We want the function to come after the webhook, and we want that module to be Google Sheets, which we can see here. And we want to set the action event to add a row. At this point, you'll be required to connect your Google Sheets account to Integromat. It's a one-click process. Once you've done that, you can select the Google Sheet you wish to work with from the Spreadsheets drop-down. For this project, I created an empty Google Sheet titled Bitcoin Webhook. Hence, I'll select that from the drop-down of the Spreadsheets to work with it. We can now select a specific sheet within that Google Sheet, and there's only one sheet in that Google Sheet, which is Sheet 1, so let's select that. And the sheet does contain headers, so I'll make sure that's selected as yes. And we'll see that the headers appear, price and transactions. Let's now map the data from our scraper to sheets via our webhook. In column A, I will select price, and in column B, I will select transactions. Now, if we refer back to the web scraper for a moment, that's the data that we want. So we can see in results, we have price and we have transactions. Now let's go back to Integromat and click OK to confirm everything. So our Google Sheets module is now set up, so let's run our webhook. First, let's click the wand to auto-align the functions, so it just looks a bit more cleaner on the page. Second, let's rename our webhook automation to Bitcoin Webhook. Now click Run Once. Then you'll want to switch over to Simple Scraper and click Run Recipe. And once you've done that, you can switch back to Integromat. Within moments, we will see our automation complete, following which the output will get displayed into Google Sheets as we set up in Integromat. And if we switch over to Google Sheets, you'll see the output of our webhook. Now, of course, transactions isn't a currency, which we can simply change in Google Sheets. So if we change the entire column to number, that'll be perfect. So now every time the automation runs, the data will correctly show. Now let's go back to Integromat and turn our scheduling on and leave the run scenario set to immediately. And of course you can select other run scenarios as well. And let's click activate. Now we can go back on the scenarios page and we can see that our webhook is now active. It will now activate instantly as new data gets passed to it. And of course, if we set up our web scraper to scrape periodically and automatically, you should refer to the Simple Scraper documentation to see how to do that. This entire process would be automated with no manual intervention. This project is now complete. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this no-code project, please give this video a like. And if you want to be notified of the latest projects that I publish regularly, please subscribe. I'll see you in another no-code project.